Alright guys, and welcome back to Rixpo University. This will be part 2 of my Bounty Hunter guide. Part 1 consisted of the Arsenal Mercenary skill tree, and this one will consist of the Pyrotech skill tree. The difference between Arsenal and Pyrotech is that Arsenal is a more bursty class and Pyrotech is a more sustained damage with its dots, damage over time, and other abilities. As of the current state, which is 2.7, Pyrotech is passing higher than Arsenal currently. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the skill tree. This is my current skill build and one of the more popular ones, the 2836. You can take the 2 points in higher than muscle and put them into stabilizers. This will reduce the pushback on unload power shot by 100%. This is good for some boss fights. Since I'm on my ship and I'm fighting the training dummy, I don't have to worry about any pushback, so I have the points in higher muscle. As we focus on Arsenal about proccing unload, for Pyrotech we are focused on proccing rail shot. That is our main damaging move, and it revolves around the prototype particle accelerator, which reads: power shot has a 45% chance and unload has a 75% chance to finish the cooldown on rail shot and make the next rail shot free. This effect cannot occur more than once every 6 seconds. 6 seconds is about 4 global cooldowns. So the way it's going to go is the rail shot that we fire is our first global cooldown. So then we have 3 more cooldowns to fill before we proc the next rail shot. Now, the last one has to be a power shot to get the proc. So it's going to be rail shot, blank blank, power shot. The thing with prototype particle accelerator currently is that if you do 2 power shots, it stacks the percentages up to a guaranteed proc. So now we got rail shot, blank, power shot, power shot. That blank is a filler that we can fill with either thermal detonator, incendiary missile, electronet, thermal sensor override into fusion missile, or even another power shot. Now, you want to keep your dots on the enemy as often as possible. One thing to note with thermal detonator is that you can do it pretty much on cooldown. When you throw the thermal detonator, it ticks on the opponent before it blows up. So as it's ticking, the old one should be wearing off. So that will reduce the time where the enemy doesn't have any dots on them. So now we know the rotation, which is basically a rail shot, a filler, 2 power shots, and you just repeat. Unload is here for a reason, which I will show you guys during the pause. So what we're going to do is we're going to knock the dummy's health down, and then we're going to do an armor reduction as well. The reason for this is because unlike Arsenal, Pyrotech does not have an armor reduction ability. Tracer missile has it, power shot does not. Keep that in mind for when you guys have your raid groups and organizing what classes to play. You need an armor debuff, don't be Pyrotech. So now everything's all set up. I'm going to start off like I always do with a thermal sensor override into a fusion missile, and then we're just going to unload on the dummy. So we're going to do rail shot, missile, 1 power shot, 2 power shots, there's the clock, a filler, 2 power shots, clock, filler, 1 power shot, 2 power shot. Another thing it's good to keep in mind for when you guys are doing or your fillers is if you can keep them kind of on the same rotation. That way they don't get thrown off, especially in sentry missile. So I'm gonna power shot, missile, and now vent heat is off cooldown. So what I'm gonna do unload into a power shot, and the reason for this is that now by doing it this way, it keeps my heat down without having to worry about overheating. Remember how we said that we don't want to overheat ourselves too much, especially when vent heat is off cooldown. So I alternate between doing an unload and the power shot, which gets me the proc, into a normal filler rotation. And by doing it this way, I don't have to even think about using rapid shots, because my heat always stays in a manageable level. In this case, I can do fusion missile because it's not going to cost me any heat to stack my rotations. And then we go back to the unload, power shot, and as you see, it guarantees the proc every time. 2 power shots. Now I could probably get away with doing 2 fill rotations here because my heat is actually kind of low, but it's never a bad thing to have low heat. It's a bad thing if you have 0 heat. That means you're not casting enough. I remember, as we said, you want to always be casting. So now, vent heat is off cooldown. So now I don't have to worry about unload. I can go back to my regular rotation and just keep doing abilities. 3 power shots is always a good filler, but it is a bit heat extensive. So now we're going to start building up the heat. We have vent heat to spare, so we don't have to worry about it. What you always want to do is you want to make sure. Now I got close to 70, so I want to vent heat. And now we're going to go back to our unload power shot combo. Heat's a little high, so I'm going to do my thermal sensor fusion missile. 2 power shots, there's the proc. Now this really doesn't get all the dots on the opponent constantly, but what it does do is it prevents you from even having to use rapid shots. If you see, I haven't done 1 rapid shot the entire fight yet. Rapid shot does help you control your heat, but the downside is it will hurt your DPS overall. This rotation is a lot more predictable than, say, a normal Arsenal, which you couldn't quite predict every proc. Now I see that vent heat is coming off cooldown shortly, so I'm gonna skip the unload and go straight into my filler. And then back to unload. It works perfectly, but you have to think about what you're doing. It's a solid, clean rotation. And with practice you can do this and you get your DPS to go up much higher. Obviously, I'm doing this on stim, no adrenals. The other good thing about doing it this way is that you got the fundamental is there in that you want to make sure to always be proccing rail shot. I like doing the filler ability first if possible. By doing the filler ability first, it gives you time to cool down your heat. Again, I see vent heat coming off cooldown. I can then start stacking the heat. I'm gonna probably vent heat after this rotation. I'm gonna do a double rotation here just because Electronet itself doesn't actually generate that much heat, so I can get away with doing it. That's something you guys can look at when you get a good firm understanding of your heat generation and how to manage your heat. As a bounty hunter, it is important that you learn how to manage your heat in fights. Overheating in some cases, like burn phases, is alright. But you don't want to ever do too much. So there we go. That was a full pass on the dummy. According to Pyrotech, that was about 30 to 40 DPS. Which, if you guys remember from the Arsenal, is about 200 more DPS than the Arsenal video. Which is about where Pyrotech currently is, 200-300 DPS more. So, it wasn't the best pass. Looking at my numbers, I can see activations per minute was kind of low. That pass was at 35. You want to be more around 38, 39, 40. Now, granted, part of that is me trying to explain everything I'm doing while doing it. So I can't be totally focused on hitting all the buttons. Remember that you do want to queue all your abilities up. Always be casting. Never have any dead air. That time I did have some dead air. Other things to note. Be careful when you do your unload and your power shot. In some cases, when you do it, you might not get the proc if you clip the abilities. So do it. Obviously not the proc on me, but you want to make sure that you fill the 6 seconds accordingly. The other thing about Pyrotech is it's a more mobile class. So you can drop a thermal, move, do a power shot, do another power shot, rail shot. You can move around doing abilities. You can even use power surge if you want. It's a good class for if you have to be on the run for some fights, and you can always proc in between that or going to the other skill tree. So like if there's a fight where you need more burst mechanics, you can go into Arsenal. If the fight needs more sustained damage, do Pyrotech. Other things to note about Bounty Hunter and Pyrotech in general. I didn't mention it in my first video, but it's always good to have your healing abilities on your quick bar, even though you are a DPS spec, it's always good to have them because you are a mercenary, so you do have healing abilities. You have a cleanse that can be helpful. You have 3 heals, and you have an AoE heal that can be done on the move. Each group has sorcerers who have channel heals. You don't. You can heal on the move, and that can be helpful. It might not be the greatest heal, but any heal can help. Your cooldowns, defensive cooldowns, energy shield, and cult to overload, those are your only ones, same as in Arsenal. Sweeping blasters and death from above have no place in the rotation. I did mention in Arsenal you could use death from above, but those are more for your AoE instances where you have to kill multiple adds. The other thing is, Arsenal is much easier at doing multiple targets because they don't have to worry about stacking debuffs on the enemy. They can just tracer, unload, rare shot, heat seeker. Nothing that really requires any of the debuffs, as opposed to us that requires throwing detonators and missiles and setting the enemy on fire. Now, hopefully you guys did learn about Pyrotech in this video. I hopefully will intend to make more videos of different types, maybe a healing video, maybe other classes. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post them below. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the future.